Hey art nerds! In our last How to Draw Flowers video, I showed you guys how to draw a branch of cherry blossoms. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to draw a daisy. This is the main reference image I used, although I did use some other reference images to better see how to draw the individual leaves. I'll drop a link down in the description below to the original reference. So the materials you guys are going to need for this tutorial are very simple. I'm using a mechanical pencil with H lead in it. I'm drawing in a Blick Studio watercolor sketchbook because I want to watercolor these illustrations later. So we start with a donut shape. We've got a circle and then we've got a larger, more oblong circle around it. That's helping us place the center of our daisy and then the individual petals around the daisy. We're going to draw a smaller circle within because if you look at our reference image, you can see that daisies have kind of a two-part center. Then we're going to start by kind of placing and blocking in our petals. And what I am doing for this is we have what I would call our key petals. Those are the petals that don't have anything overlapping them. They're closest to the viewer. I'm using a line, a curved line to denote that, and then I'm drawing the petal shape around it. And then once I have our key petals placed, I'll draw in all the petals that are being overlapped. So this is a lot like how we drew the hyacinth, how we drew the hydrangea, where we pick certain flowerets to draw first, and then we add everything in after that. So as you guys can see, I'm using really oblong, extended petal shapes. They're almost like rectangles. I'm using these shapes to break in or break out or sketch in, I don't know, break down our key petals. And then once I have those sketched, I'm going to draw in our sub-petals. These are the petals that are not as defined, that are more in silhouette than the key petals because they're being overlapped by other petals. And I'm not aiming for photo perfection or photorealism. I'm a comic artist. I caricature things, so I'm going to caricature my flowers. I think it adds a little bit of my personal style to it. So I'm not aiming to draw a perfect recreation of a daisy. I'm referencing a daisy and then drawing the daisy the way my brain is interpreting it. So if you're drawing along and your daisy looks different from my daisy, that's totally fine. So you see I drew a stem first. I didn't like it. It was too central, too in the middle of the image, too static. So I pulled it over to the side just a little bit to kind of add some movement to our sketch. So now we have the base sketch for our daisy. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to ink it. And we're going to use a Sakura Pigma FB brush pen for this. And one of the reasons there's a lot of reasons I like this brush pen. First of all, it means fine brush, so it has a little bitty brush tip. This allows me to get really, really fine lines and thicker lines, which gives us a more nuanced line work. It adds more liveliness rather than using one line weight, like if we were using a technical pen or a fine liner. I also like it because it's waterproof, and I want to watercolor these once I finish the drawing series. So hopefully you guys will subscribe, stick around, and keep an eye out for that. So I'm starting with the center of the daisy, and I'm using these small, almost like hatch-like strokes to indicate the center. If you guys look at our reference image, you can see that where all the pollen is, it's got these like little bitty sort of hatch marks going on. So I'm using delicate little hatch marks to indicate that rather than using a solid line around the center. Now that I've finished that, I'm going to start inking our key petals. Remember the ones that don't have any overlap? And I'm just adding a few lines and striations to give the viewer an indication of the form. And we're going to slowly work our way around the daisy. So I've mentioned this in a few of my other how to draw flower videos, but this video has been sped up by about 2 times. So don't worry if you don't draw this fast. People really don't draw this fast, and the only reason I'm drawing as fast as I do is I have drawn a lot of flowers in my time. I draw very cute comics. My comic is about a 7-inch tall little girl named Kara, so I draw a lot of grass, and I draw a lot of flowers, and I draw a lot of nature. So if you're interested in checking out my comic, you can read the first 6 chapters for free at 7inchkara.com or 7inchkara.tumblr.com. And I'm also working on the Kickstarter for Volume 2, and I have a mailing list down in the description. If you're interested, you can sign up for that, and you can get updates for when the Kickstarter is making progress, when I've created more art, and when we've launched. So I'm inking individual areas that have one of those key petals in them. And you can see I just drew a double petal here, and I'm just kind of breaking it down a little bit. Since our daisy is white, sometimes we lose some of that delineation. So when you're drawing line art, you're really drawing shadows and delineations between objects. And sometimes it's hard to see, like with clouds, with flowers, sometimes with water. It can be hard to see where one ends and the next begins. So capturing that helps give the flower a little bit more delicacy, because every line we put down is adding to the visual weight of the flower. We're adding more contrast and we're adding more black. And a flower like a daisy can get overly heavy very quickly because we're drawing so many petals. Daisies have at least 2 rows of petals. We have the row closest to us when we're viewing them, closest to the center, and then there's a second row behind that first row, and sometimes there's even petals kind of wedged in Fibonacci style. So like with so many of the flowers I've shown you guys how to draw, patience is really key here. Be patient, take your time, work from your reference, pay attention to what's going on, look critically at the flower, and you're going to end up drawing better flowers. Okay, so we have our main flower inked. Now we just need to ink the stem and the leaf that we've drawn in. And that is pretty simply done. I'm using a heavier line weight for that since it would be a darker green. It would be darker than the white of our daisy, or the yellow if you want to draw a yellow daisy. And that's about it. We have drawn a daisy together. So far we have drawn 8 different flowers, and I have at least 4 more planned. So hopefully you guys will stick around for that. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you soon.